We had a little technology problem at the temple today. This particular image wasn't showing, the whole set of slides was not showing, so I decided, because the images are very nice, to do it again so that you can see it. Because homes work better than temples sometimes. So there's the Jaladuta that celebrated ship that carried Srila Prabhupada across the globe from India. The disembarkation of the ship started in Calcutta, and it went all the way down the southern tip of India, then back up on the western side of India, and then crossed the Suez Canal and everything before. It was a long journey. And the Srimad Bhagavatams were loaded onto in the cargo portion of this cargo ship in Coimbatore, way down there. But that was prearranged like that. And this is the title here, An Extraordinary Journey. This is on Prabhupada's disappearance day. It's nice, among other things, to remember the gift that he gave. There's two references I'd like to make about receiving gifts. There's a nice statement in Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Some of you familiar with Brihat Bhagavatamrita. It's part 2. It's Gopakumar expressing when he was a little boy. He was a cowherd boy by his birth, by his life in Vrindavan. And there was this Brahmana who was residing in Vrindavan. Gopakumar met him, and he became very enamored by this Brahmana. And he, the cowherd boy, requested the Brahmana to give him mantra diksha. So this Brahmana was very impressed with the character and the quality of Gopakumar, so he gave him the Gopal mantra. And he didn't give him detailed instructions about how and when and under what circumstances, but he gave him the mantra and said to chant this mantra for the rest of your life. So he did. And there's a nice passage. One of the passages was in, he became elevated in consciousness through mantra chanting. And one of the places that he visited was Tapaloka. Tapaloka. Tapaloka is in the upper planetary regions, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Brahmaloka, top 4. Bhuvarloka, that's where we are. Bhuloka, Bhuvarloka, Swargaloka, then that's 3. And then another 7 makes this 7 upper planetary systems. So Tapaloka is way up there. And the persons who reside in Tapaloka, they engage in tapa. They engage in austerities, and their favorite activity is dhyan, meditation. And they found Gopakumar chanting this mantra, and they said, "Why are you chanting this mantra? You can realize everything just through dhyan." So they persuaded him. They tried to influence him, to elevate him to dhyan yoga. And he was interested, and he tried, but it just wasn't the same. Dhyan wasn't the same as chanting of his mantra. And then there's this nice expression where he said, he's having a conversation with Narada Muni, and it says that I realized that I'd be guilty of ingratitude if I didn't realize the fullness of this mantra that had been given to me. Because how could I appreciate the fullness unless I experienced it? And if I wasn't experiencing it, how could I offer proper gratitude for that gift that I had been given? It's a nice teaching. Tomorrow morning when you're chanting your japa, remember this one. I'd be guilty of ingratitude if I didn't experience the fullness of that gift that I had been given, because how could I express it if I haven't experienced it? And then there's another nice reference about gratitude. And then another nice reference about gratitude comes in Sundarakanda. Some of you know Sundarakanda. So some of us just visited Sri Lanka. And one of the first seminars was Hanuman's crossing. And the first obstacle that he encountered was Mainaka. Mainaka was a mountain that had been saved by Vayu's kindness. Vayu is the father of Hanuman. And there was a point in time, according to the Ramayana, there was a point in time when mountains had wings. There's in the Bhagavatam. There was a time when mountains had wings, and they could fly in the sky with their wings. And the celestials became very anxious. What if there was a mountain crash? So they went to Indra and asked help. So Indra was willing to help, and he took his thunderbolt weapon and broke off the wings of the mountain so they couldn't fly anymore. And there was one that escaped. That was Mainaka. And the Mainaka escaped because Vayu felt compassion, and he blew the mountain into the sea with his wings, so that Indra couldn't chop his wings. And Mainaka felt gratitude towards the wind god, and he wanted to express his gratitude by making himself present as Hanuman, the son of the wind god, was crossing the sea, so he could take a little rest, because it was a long leap, 100 yojanas or 800 miles. And then there's this lengthy, in Ramayana, there's a lengthy dive into the topic of gratitude and ingratitude. And the topic goes like this. There are scriptural references that says if one is an offender this way, there's a method of atonement. If one's a killer of a brahmana, there's a method of atonement. This sin, the drinking of alcohol, where there's a process of atonement. This sin, that sin, there's a process of atonement. There's no atonement for ingratitude. It's so bad, ingratitude. Or gratitude is so elevating. So it's important for us who have received a gift from our founder Acharya to acknowledge that gift and express it. Express it with our life. To give not just thank you, but an expression of gratitude is reciprocate. Besides thank you. Thank you is nice, that's polite. Saying thank you is nice. And more than saying thank you, live your life that's consistent with that thank you. An expression of gratitude. A saying that I like very much. Gratitude is the seed of love. We'll say it 3 times. Gratitude is the seed of love. So many of us, once upon a time, we didn't know Hare Krishna movement, we didn't know Hare Krishna mantra, we didn't know lots of things. Now, some of the persons in the room here, you're born into devotee families, and so, you know, from the get-go, you have that understanding. But many of us, we did something else before, whatever that something else was, different something else's. And then along came bhakti. And the seed of bhakti came through someone who was carrying the seed of bhakti, some bhakta. And they passed on bhakti to us. And that's a great gift. Like bhakti lata bij. Many of you know the verse. You can say with me if you know the verse. Brahmanda brahmite kona bhagyavan jiv Guru Krishna prasade bhai bhakti lata bija. So the bija, or the seed of the bhakti lata, the creeper of bhakti, comes to one by the mercy, kripa, of both Guru and Krishna. The distributor is Guru, and the source of that seed is Krishna. So by the combined mercy of Guru and Krishna, one receives the seed of Bhakti Lata. And that's a great gift. And the life of devotional service is an expression of gratitude. That is, living a life of bhakti, living a life of devotion to the personality of Godhead. And that's what this cargo ship was carrying. Lots of the Srimad Bhagavatam sets, and then that was the book Bhagavat, and then there's the person Bhagavat. You know the verse? Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. So the Bhagavata is both the book and the person. Bhagavat is in relation to Bhagavan. So there's the person and there's the book, Bhagavat, in relation to Bhagavan. They're representing Bhagavan, the book and the person. And this incredible, extraordinary journey was carrying both the person and the book across the sea. Now, across the sea has some connotation. It's one of those prohibitions for sadhus. Don't cross the sea. There's a reason. And on the other side of that sea, there's uncivilized people. And in the association of uncivilized people, the sadhu can become corrupted or uncivilized just through association of corrupt people. So the advice is, stay in the association of purity and avoid association of disease. And before you go into a place of disease, you better take an inoculation because you can contract the disease. So the inoculation is bhakti. So Prabhupada was carrying this seed of devotion across the sea on a ship, cargo ship, Jaladuta. And he had a mission of Lord Chaitanya And the mission of Lord Chaitanya, of course, is the mission of Krishna. And the mission of Lord Chaitanya through disciplic succession was the very firm instruction by his spiritual master, by Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta. And we're going to hear a little bit about that night's instruction, for which, it's historical, but it's the passing on of that seed to Prabhupada that passed on the seed to us. And then we, in turn, have the opportunity and responsibility to pass the seed on to others. It's bhakti. It doesn't cost anything. It's pretty rare to achieve, but there's no price tag. So here's a little subtitle: One Man's Improbable Journey into a Million Hearts. So Prabhupada's journey began from childhood, a little bit of childhood. His Prabhupada's family name was Day. His father's was Gaur Mohan Day. His Prabhupada's name was Abhay Charan Day, D-E. And so that Day family, Prabhupada explains, is from Gautama Rishi, the line of disciplic succession, Brahmana birth in the line of Gautama Rishi. Gautama Rishi, we'll hear this during the Thanksgiving visit to Haridwar. Gautama Rishi is one of the Sapta Rishis. Sapta Rishis? Have you heard the name before? Sapta means seven. And there were 7 rishis. Have you seen in the sky the Big Dipper? The constellation of stars? Looks like it has a ladle and then it has a handle. It's called the Big Dipper. And it points toward the North Star. Yeah. So that's the constellation of, or the constellation of the Sapta Rishis. So the Sapta Rishis have their residence in the upper realm. However, they liked the austerities that they performed so much in Haridwar that they established an ashram in Haridwar. And we'll be spending some time, we'll virtually at least, pay a visit to that place, because once we did visit that place. And they had they liked engaging in tapa, austerities, along the banks of the river Ganga. And by their request, the Ganga divided into 7 streams. Right where they were performing their austerities. So one of the 7 rishis is Gautama. Gautama and his wife Ahalya, and there's a whole story we'll hear. But Prabhupada's family was the Day family in the line of Gautama Rishi. Very authentic Brahmana line. And his father was a Vaishnava. Very gentle Brahmana Vaishnava. And his father was a worshipper of Radha Govinda deities in his home. And when Prabhupada was a little boy, he requested his father for a set of Radha Govinda deities that he could worship as a little boy. So his father was happy and gave him Radha Govinda to worship. And the rest of his life he worshipped, not necessarily that very same Radha Govinda, but for many, many, many years I served in New York, and the deities Prabhupada gave the name Radha Govinda. The deity Radha Govinda that was worshipped in New York was a gift of the queen in Jaipur. She liked Prabhupada so much, she gave Prabhupada deities of Radha Krishna from the Govindaji supply of where they have many, many, many deities from Jaipur. And so Prabhupada brought the deities to New York, and they were installed in New York and became Radha Govinda. It's a nice history. So in addition to worshiping Radha Govinda, Prabhupada described that when his father, Calcutta was their home. It's a suburb of Calcutta, not the urban, thick, tall buildings, Calcutta. And his father took his son every year from when he was a little boy to Jagannath Puri to attend Rath Yatra. The big Rath Yatra. Yeah. And then by train ride back. And when Prabhupada saw the Rath Yatra being inspired, he asked his father, can we have Rath Yatra right here in our neighborhood? His father was very happy to, and made an arrangement. His father had a carpenter make a little Rath Yatra cart that they could just pull around the neighborhood with all the other little boys. His mother made prasadam, and the children played musical instruments and kirtan and just went around the block and had their little Rath Yatra with Jagannath on the cart. That's when Prabhupada was 6 years old. You just get a picture of the beginnings. The seed was already with him, and he was getting ready to distribute Jagannath Rath Yatras all over the world a little bit later in his life. But the seed was there. And one of the things that his father did, because he was a Brahmana, and a respected Brahmana, he regularly invited sadhus to their home and would want to provide lunch or meal for those sadhus. And when the sadhus would come, his father would ask blessings for his son, that his son would become a nice devotee of Radharani. It's a nice father blessings to become a nice devotee of Radharani. So he did. And later on, and when Srila Prabhupada was 26 years old, by that time he was in college, he was already married, and one of his friends requested him to come here as sadhu, right, not far from where their home was. And Prabhupada declined and said, when I was growing up, my father brought so many sadhus, and they weren't really sadhus, and no thanks. And his friend insisted, no, he's different. Please come. I've heard him speak. Reluctantly, Prabhupada went. And so they met. The meeting was on the rooftop. In Calcutta in the summer, it's hot. So at the rooftop, there's some breeze, and there was Bhaktisiddhanta seated on the rooftop. And Prabhupada describes that when he and his friend came, there was already a little gathering, and while he was paying obeisances, Bhaktisiddhanta noted him and singled him out, and shortly after he sat up just to hear the discourse, Bhaktisiddhanta directly addressed him in this little assembly and said, "You're an educated young man. You should take the teachings of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking parts of the world. And Prabhupada heard him out and then replied, because at that time, young, intelligent, intellectual young men had become Gandhi followers, because it was a big, thing at the time. Get the British out, and Swaraj, self-rule. And so Prabhupada replied, the time isn't right. If we take the message of Lord Chaitanya, because this is Bengal, so people from Bengal already know who is Lord Chaitanya. At least they know something of Lord Chaitanya. And his father was a Brahmana, so he knew certainly about Lord Chaitanya. He said people outside of India won't pay attention because we're under British rule. First, get free from the British rule, and then go and take the message. And then people may listen. For 20 minutes, Prabhupada described, for 20 minutes, Bhaktisiddhanta took that reply and stripped it threadbare, saying many, many, many things. It's not in this particular presentation, but his words to Prabhupada were very strong, very clear, essentially saying the absolute truth isn't dependent upon time and circumstance. Time and circumstance don't create auspiciousness or inauspiciousness for transcendence. The time is the present, and the need is in present. The world is in a state of chaos at present, and the need is for the world is the absolute truth, and nothing can stop it, nothing can start it. He's haituki pratiyata. Yayatma suprasidati. It'll be good for the happiness of others, and it'll be good for you. So Prabhupada accepted defeat. He commented, because he's now 26. When I was a young man, I was very good at debate, and I'd always win and never lose. But here was the first time I was defeated, and I was happy to be defeated because he was right. And from that point on, Prabhupada had held this very special place in his heart for Bhaktisiddhanta. That was 1922. And some 4 years later, Prabhupada received Harinam Diksha and Gayatri Diksha at the same time in Allahabad from Bhaktisiddhanta. Now we'll go a little bit forward, and he's an initiated disciple. In 1935, Bhaktisiddhanta was taking groups of devotees to the holy places. In this case, it was Vrindavan. And the painting here is illustrating, they're walking by the side of Radhakund in Vrindavan. There's some sannyasis in the background, and there's Prabhupada having conversation with Bhaktisiddhanta. I have a desire to print some books. If you ever get money, print books. Standing at Radhakund and beholding his spiritual master, Abai felt the words deeply enter his own life. If you ever get money, print books. So it was a very direct instruction. He's now initiated disciple and getting a direct instruction what to do in his life. And 1 year later, 1 month later, Prabhupada heard again from his spiritual master the very same thing he heard the first time they met. I am fully confident that you can explain in English our thoughts and arguments to the people who are not conversant with the languages of the other members, meaning outside of India. This will do much good to yourself as well as to your audience. I have every hope that you can turn yourself into a very good English preacher if you serve the mission to inculcate the novel impression of Lord Chaitanya's teachings unto the people in general, as well as philosophers and religionists. So that he made it this demarcation. There's people in general, and then there's people that think they're smart, the philosophers and religionists. So those both audiences were important to our founder Acharya, as you know, as his career as a preacher unfolded. He made a point to meet with philosophers and professors and dignitaries and VIP people that were, yad yad acharati shreshtas. They were the leaders of the society, misleading people because they didn't know the purpose of life. And he made an attempt. His attempt was following the instruction of his spiritual master. His spiritual master's attempt was following Bhaktivinoda Thakur, his father. It's a detail, but it's a nice detail. And Prabhupada's birth date was 1896. And in 1896, it was the same year that Bhaktivinoda Thakur sent around the world to different universities Sri Chaitanya, his life and precepts. 2-part book, little book. The original book was found in McGill University, in a university and somewhere in Southeast Asia, because he sent out of his own pocket, he sent these publications in the English language with the explicit intention that at least the educated people of the world should know who was Lord Chaitanya. He wanted. So went to universities and got put in their libraries, and people read it or they didn't read it, but it was, beginning to make it available. The educated people at least should know. So Prabhupada made that point also in his travels and his teaching. He gave teachings to the devotee, to people in general, abundantly, but also to scholars and educated people and so forth. So here are these two instructions. Get money, print books, and preach in the English-speaking parts of the world, both to people in general and to philosophers and religionists. So here's Srila Prabhupada. He's by now completed his education. He's now working in the pharmaceutical business, and in the wee hours of the night, he is focusing on what he heard from Bhaktisiddhanta. Srila Prabhupada took both of these instructions as his life's mission. A period of deep reflection and study followed Srila Prabhupada's meeting with Bhaktisiddhanta. Prabhupada greatly revered this scholarly spiritual teacher and read his writings assiduously. Now, in addition, as you see in the illustration, there's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The life and works of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's father, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, also revealed much to Srila Prabhupada about the spiritual heritage of Krishna consciousness and helped inspire him to propagate the science of devotional service through the English language. Now, he's Bengali, but he knew English, had command of English that was exceptional. And in the course of these 43 years, he was preparing himself for a mission, his life mission. When he was 57 years old, Srila Prabhupada left the pharmaceutical business in the care of his sons, so his sons could maintain the family affairs, and Prabhupada turned his attention fully to devotional life. Now, many things happened. The timeline that we discussed yesterday evening. He went to Jhansi. He started making his effort to preach Krishna consciousness in India, and it didn't get much traction for different reasons. And there was some effort. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta departed this world by this time, but he had, his life's mission ahead of him. And in 1956, at the age of 60, Srila Prabhupada moved to Vrindavan. He moved to Vrindavan to be in the land of Krishna's pastimes, to immerse himself in Srimad Bhagavatam, because it's a little bit of, I have to be conscious of time, it's 7:25. The story is so nice, it's easy to just get involved in the story. But I have to keep track of time at the same time. During Bhaktisiddhanta's time, he had made an effort, a major effort. The major effort was two sannyasis were identified, that they would go from the Gaudiya Math, the institution that Bhaktisiddhanta had established in India, travel across the sea and go to England and establish the Gaudiya Math in England. And the arrangement was all of the maths gave some modest sum of money so that these two sannyasis could travel, and when they have a place to stay when they got to the other end, and so forth and so on. And he, Bhaktisiddhanta, wanted a book, and the book was being composed by a professor in Orissa, Professor Sanyal, a person that Bhaktisiddhanta had close collaboration with, and he was his disciple. He was Bhaktisiddhanta's disciple, but he was a very learned person and very mature, and so he was commissioned to write this book, and it's available. It's this thick, and he held up, the book wasn't ready, so they held up the launch of the travel to England because they wanted to take the book. They introduced who was Lord Chaitanya to England, to people outside of India, in English. Prabhupada did the same thing. And the same thing was modified slightly. He wanted to bring with him a book. So the book, the Prabhupada's book, was first canto Srimad Bhagavatam. And the reasoning was the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. The teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam are the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. They're seamlessly one. So to take the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, first canto Srimad Bhagavatam. And notice in the very introduction of Srimad Bhagavatam, there's the story of Lord Chaitanya's life, the life and precepts. Exactly what Bhaktisiddhanta did. The two-part book. The life is Chaitanya Charitamrita. Precepts, Dasamula Tattva, a phrase that Bhaktisiddhanta coined, Bhaktivinoda Thakur coined, to indicate the teachings of Lord Chaitanya are 10 in number. Dasa Mula Tattva. 10 essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So the essential teachings of Lord Chaitanya is Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam with an introduction of the life of Lord Chaitanya. That's, Prabhupada just was, the form and the language slightly different. The principle didn't differ at all. Take the message of Lord Chaitanya to the English-speaking parts of the world. So to translate the Bhaktivedanta purports, he had already been given, after Bhaktisiddhanta's departure, he had been given the title Bhaktivedanta. Bhaktivedanta is just like, it's a title recognizing that he was a very learned person. Bhaktivedanta. So his birth name was Abhay Charan Dey. His initiated name was Abhay Charan Aravinda Das. And then he became A.C. Bhaktivedanta. And then later Swami. So that's after he had lived in Vrindavan. Who was living in Vrindavan, the photograph here is Keshigat. Keshigat, you see in the background, there's the Madan Mohan temple and, different places in Vrindavan. And the place where he stayed was the Radha Vinod temple. Now, Radha Vinod, it's just a family deity, and the wealthy people often lived in homes that was like, whatever you call it, more than one family, collective residential facilities. The big wall compound, and inside many families lived under the same family line. That was where he lived. So Prabhupada rented a room from that family, and downstairs was the Radha Vinod deity, and he would visit the deity, but this was his room. This is where he stayed for the first period of time where he was in Vrindavan, by Keshigat. Pretty simple. Very simple. And there's no cooking, there's no bathing, no toilet. It's just four walls. That was where Prabhupada stayed for some time. And after some time, because Prabhupada became a little bit acquainted with Vrindavan town, he made a friendship with the chief priest of the Radha Damodar temple. I have water. The name has just escaped me. It'll come back. The Vishvambar Goswami. Vishvambar Goswami was the chief priest at the Radharaman temple. The chief priest of the Radharaman temple, Vishvambar Goswami, was very senior and very much respected by everybody in all of Vrindavan because of who he was. And Vishvambar Goswami had a friend who was the chief priest at the Radha Damodar temple. Vishvambar Goswami leveraged his relationship with that Radha Damodar Goswami person. You have 2 rooms. Can you rent those rooms at the Radha Damodar temple to Bhaktivedanta, so he can stay there and be close to the deity of Radha Damodar? So with the door being opened, Prabhupada met with the priest, and an arrangement was made, little contract was signed, that he could have 2 rooms. And one of those 2 rooms was looking out over the courtyard. Now they've made construction all over the place over there. But he could look out the window and see the Samadhi and Bhajan Kutir of Rupa Goswami. Because after the demise, the physical departure of Rupa Goswami, Jiva Goswami was entrusted with all the manuscripts, sacred manuscripts with Rupa Goswami's own handwriting were given to Jiva Goswami to care for. So he kept them in a very special place. And the body of his spiritual master and uncle was placed in Samadhi and his Bhajan Kutir place in the courtyard of the Radha Damodar temple. So Prabhupada's rooms are overlooking the Samadhi and Bhajan Kutir of Rupa Goswami. In the course of time, in addition to moving to the Radha Damodar temple, Prabhupada was visiting in Mathura, and one of his godbrothers, pictured here, was the presiding sannyasi at the Gaudiya Math in Mathura. And in Mathura, his godbrother persuaded Srila Prabhupada to take sannyas. So this is the photograph of his sannyas initiation. Prabhupada: I was sitting alone in Vrindavan writing. My godbrother insisted, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted. Not he insisted. Practically, my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher. So he forced me through my godbrother. You accept. So unwillingly, I accepted. Now here's Prabhupada looking out the window. One of his two rooms was where he did his cooking, and a little kerosene cooker. And he'd eat his meals in the same place, look out the window, and this is what he would see outside the window. There's the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami. And he would pray intently, fervently, helplessly to Rupa Goswami, because he has this mission that he understood it wasn't a light thing, somehow cross the sea and get to the other side and give the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. How to present it in such a way that it would be intelligible. He prayed, Hey Rupa, Hey Sanatana, Hey Gurudev, please give me your mercy. Without your mercy, I cannot do anything. Give me mercy. Give me the strength that I may fulfill your orders. Now it's the order of Bhaktisiddhanta, but the order of Bhaktisiddhanta comes through disciplic succession. Now you won't see this, what you see in this photograph today. They've done construction all over the place, but this was a very simple facility at that time. And as he was praying and praying and praying, suddenly Rupa Goswami appeared before him and spoke encouragingly, Maharaj, don't worry about anything. Go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the chanting of Hare Krishna. You will be successful, I guarantee. I guarantee you, because I'll be right there with you all the time. Prabhupada explained many times Rupa Goswami appeared to him in his dreams. Imagine, many generations later, Rupa Goswami appears in his dreams to reassure success. How intent was that relationship of appeal to Srila Prabhupada? Here's a nice photograph during the interview session for preparing Lilamrita. Different interviewers were interviewing people that may have had interaction with Prabhupada during that time he was at Radha Damodar temple. This is one fellow, Hridayananda Babaji Maharaj. At the time he was interviewed, he was 78 years old. He was Brahmana born at Radhakund, and he lived not at but near the Radha Damodar temple. And at the beginning of the interview, they asked Babaji Maharaj if he knew Prabhupada. And he began to cry. Babaji Maharaj began to cry, saying, "Never have I seen anyone do sadhana like he did. I've lived my life in Braja. I've never seen anyone like him. Prabhupada did many arduous things. He worked very hard at the Radha Damodar temple. At that time it was very austere, undeveloped, very muddy and dirty with no facilities. Many years later, when I heard that it was actually he who had been chosen by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to spread the Hare Krishna Mahamantra all over the world, I was not surprised." He went on to say, many times in the middle of the night, at midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning, I would hear a voice crying from inside the courtyard by Rupa Goswami's samadhi. That voice was calling out and crying, but I didn't know what it was because I was trying to take rest. But one night, on the full moon, I heard that voice again, so I climbed up to the rooftop of our house and looked down into the Radha Damodar courtyard. I saw something very amazing. Srila Prabhupada was sweeping the courtyard of Rupa Goswami's samadhi. He was bending down with a broom, and as he swept the ground by the samadhi, he was crying out, "Hey Rupa, hey Sanatan, hey Guru Dev, without your mercy I cannot do anything." This is our founder Acharya. You know, the abject humility. It's literally praying. It's hard to picture. You know, the qualification that he had. The sense of complete dependence. Now I just sharing. I just spent 3 weeks in Sri Lanka, and the whole of the time was Sundarakanda, and the main theme was find Sita. And he met many obstacles and so forth and so on and so on and so on and so on, and he wasn't able to find Sita even when he got there, and searching here and there, and that, you know, there's a whole long description of where he searched, and he became very despondent because he was unable to fulfill the mission. But he persevered, and he felt completely dependent. Ultimately, what made it possible was he started offering prayers to Lakshmi Devi, to Sita, the goddess of fortune. And by her mercy, then the dial moved, and he was able to find Sita. Look in the Ashok Vana and so forth. So the theme from Sundarakanda was his complete dependence upon descending mercy. He had ability. He had powers given to him by the gods, and son of Vayu, and you know, he had power and strength and shape-changing ability, and you know, had great competence. But without mercy, he was unable to find Sita. Then he was able to find Sita. And then came the rest of the challenge and so forth. But Srila Prabhupada similarly has this mission and he has competence. He's so eager for the mercy to make it possible to do Mission Impossible. So some time passed, and here's a photograph, a more recent photograph. Maybe if some of you have seen Prabhupada in Butler, Pennsylvania, playing with little boy Bridge. Bridge was a little boy, recently born son of Gopal and Sali Agarwal. There's Bridge, he got a little bit bigger. This is the time of the interview for Leelamrita. And the circumstance was Prabhupada was attending a home program in Agra. And when in that home program in Agra, there was a man named Mr. Agarwal, who was Prabhupada. He confided in Prabhupada, who was just a sadhu at the time. He was feeling very sad because his son left India to go study engineering at an engineering college in America. And then in order so he could stay in America, he got married to an American lady. And he built his family in America. And so this gentleman was like whining and complaining about his misfortune. His son went across the sea, and who knows? Sound familiar, maybe? So Prabhupada later, he wrote to the son, Gopal. There's Gopal Agarwal in the photograph. And Prabhupada asked Gopal to send him a letter that he could use to get a visitor's visa to go to America. Because without a visa, you can't go to America. So Gopal wrote a letter back, and Prabhupada used the letter and got a visa, a visitor's visa. So there's the visitor's visa. So that was pretty nice. Now he's got a visa, but he doesn't have a passport. So you got to get a passport. And to get a passport, he has to get a P form. So he asked Sumati Mararji if she could put Prabhupada on her ship, because it's a cargo ship, so it's not a passenger ship, but they had little cabins for some passengers, and he was assigned some space. It's a detail, but details are nice. They met for the first time in Kurukshetra. Now, Kurukshetra is very far away from Bombay, but Sumati Mararji was a pious lady. So she was visiting holy places, and Kurukshetra was one of those holy places. And when she was visiting in Kurukshetra, she saw one sadhu sitting under a tree, chanting on beads. And she became intrigued. This looks like a genuine sadhu. So she approached, and there was some conversation between her and Prabhupada. That was their first meeting. Then later, Prabhupada visited her in Bombay. That's what was shown here. And he made this request, visited her in her office and made the request, could you give me a place on your ship so I can cross the sea and go to America and fulfill the order of my spiritual master? And she tried to persuade him to not go, but he insisted. There's a little recording of her being interviewed. Swamiji, you won't survive the ocean crossing, Swamiji. It's too cold there. You don't know anybody. How are you going to do this? But he insisted. So you get a P form. I don't know what a P form is. You get a P form, and I'll give you a place on the ship. So he got the P form, and there's his passport. And so finally, in those days, a P form, whatever that is. It was difficult. And he got it. And there he goes, boarding the Jaladuta. And, the beginning of the journey was 1965, August. At this time, Prabhupada was 69 years old. His son had gone all the way to Calcutta to see him off on the ship. And 38-day sea voyage without any money in his pocket. And, with nobody on the other end to receive him. Who's going to do that? And his possessions filled in that little suitcase with an umbrella. And in Coimbatore, the books were loaded in the hull, and then Prabhupada kept a little diary that later the diary was found, and it was published as the Jaladuta diary. And so day by day, Prabhupada made entries into this little diary, and in the course of the sea crossing, after loading the books and back to Bombay, and then through the Suez Canal and, into the Atlantic Ocean, 1965, 2 heart attacks. You all know the story. This is Prabhupada with Krishna placing his hand on Prabhupada's chest, and the upper part of the painting is that night that Krishna came and spoke to him, reassuring him he would be successful. He had a dream, and that dream is in the painting at the top. The dream looks like this. Prabhupada, in the dream, Krishna, along with his incarnations, were rowing a boat, and the boat was being pulled all the way to America. Matsya was pulling the boat too. And so Prabhupada took the dream to be as an indication that he would be successful. A sign. And after this heart attack, today the ship is flying very smoothly. I feel today better. But I'm feeling separation from Sri Vrindavan and my Lord Sri Govinda Gopinath Radha Damodar. The only solace is Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which I am tasting the nectarine of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. I left Bharatbhumi just to execute the order of Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in pursuance of Lord Chaitanya's order. I have no qualification, but I've taken up the risk just to carry out the order of His divine grace. I depend fully on their mercy, so far away from Vrindavan. So he's picture of his heart. I mean, he's risking his life, and he knows it. He nearly passed in the heart attacks. With the books in the cargo, and an address of somebody in Butler, Pennsylvania that he's never met before. Wow. And that's our founder, Acharya. Today I have disclosed my mind to my companion, Lord Sri Krishna. There is a Bengali poem made by me today in this connection. So this is the poem. This isn't his Markine Bhagavad Dharma, but this is a poem that he wrote. And then later, after arrival in the Boston Harbor, he composed the celebrated Markine Bhagavad Dharma, September 1965. I'm going to read, and then we think we're going to end. My dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul. but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do with me what you like. I guess you have some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring me to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. But I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you're the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service? Oh Lord, I simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. All living entities have become under the control of the illusory energy by your will, and therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. Now, this is his companion. He's identifying Krishna as his companion. And he's confiding in his dear companion. Mission impossible. How are these people going to understand transcendence? But if you so desire, then they can understand. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation, and if a sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception, then he will be able to understand your message. He will become liberated from the influence of the modes of ignorance and passion, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the core of the heart will disappear. He had faith in the Bhagavatam and the process of bhakti. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. The instrument, no ego, servant. It's like so clear. Just it's just the thread, and then the thread is being pulled by the needle, and the needle is pulling the thread. He's just the instrument. The right consciousness for conveying the message. Somehow or other, O Lord, you have brought me here to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure as you like. O spiritual master of all the worlds, I can simply repeat your message. So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Audiences, very diverse. Here's the hippie scene in San Francisco. Prabhupada sitting there with Mridanga, and people doing whatever young people did at that time. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel gladdened and thus become liberated from all unhappy conditions of life. Oh Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, oh Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I've been designated as Bhakti Vedanta, and now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purport of Bhakti Vedanta. So this is circling back to the starting point. This is Prabhupada's expression of gratitude to the seed of bhakti that had been given to him. And he's, ready to, not only ready, he sacrificed his life, literally, figuratively, as well as literally, to fulfill that mandate that had been given to him, which he felt eternally indebted to, internally and eternally indebted to, the gift of Krishna Bhakti, of course, from his father and others, but particularly from Bhakti Siddhanta. And qualified. There's just last thing. The Sundarakanda's message of Hanuman crossing the sea parallels exactly Srila Prabhupada's crossing the sea. Great credential and qualification, both. And mandated to do so, both. And meeting obstacles, both. And overcoming those obstacles by mercy, both. Very, very strong, very, very strong in the Prabhupada's mood is the sense of dependence. Never independent, always dependent. At every step. And Krishna reciprocated, like anything. Because here's a fit recipient, let me give my mercy. So how are we going to help our founder Acharya with gratitude for the gift that we had been given? Just like, here in Houston, this fantastic temple. Once upon a time wasn't a fantastic temple, it was just beginning. And now it is what it is. So we've been given a wonderful facility. The entire Srimad Bhagavatam and sets of Srimad Bhagavatam being distributed profusely. And what part can we play in the expression of gratitude unto the person who gave us this gift? Ultimately, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the representatives of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and those dear devotees that introduced us to Krishna consciousness or gave us a book or gave us the mantra or something, prasadam, and gradually nurtured us along the path of Krishna Bhakti. So we're going to meet obstacles. We are meeting obstacles, and we'll continue to meet obstacles as life unfolds. But that's life. And then, what's the place of shelter for us? And here it is. I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. And his literature, his gift of writing, which he cultivated very carefully and meticulously, and as we heard, because this is the disappearance day of Prabhupada, repeat something that Hanumat Preshik Swami said today. He was in Prabhupada's room when a reporter asked this question, Swamiji, what's going to happen after you leave this world? What's going to happen to your movement? And Prabhupada's reply, instant reply, the spiritual master lives forever in his books. So you and I, can get his association through his books. He does make himself available. There's the letter of his teachings, and then there's the spirit of his teachings, and part of the purpose of this little presentation today is to help us understand a little more deeply how profound the mandate was given to him, how seriously Prabhupada took it, and the sense of dependence to make his mission successful. And it's not just after he arrived at the Boston Harbor, the mood changed. The mood was always the same. Complete dependence, carrying forward the mandate. So, same for us, to our capacity. Let's see if there's some discussion on the disappearance day of our founder Acharya.
Question, Prabhu. Why was the US only? Why his guru told him to come to US?
It's the English-speaking parts of the world. That was the mandate, the English-speaking parts of the world. So England is certainly English-speaking parts of the world. Now, here's a detail. Details are nice. When Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, preparing the Bhaktivedanta Purforge for the Canto 1 Bhagavatam, he was making trips to Delhi with his Back to Godhead magazine, following Bhaktisiddhanta, and to promote the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in Delhi, but also to search for persons who may potentially be able to help him print his Bhagavatam. So by finding the right people. So in the course of those forays into Delhi, one individual gave him a flyer from Japan. And a flyer from Japan, this is post-World War II, visas were locked down. Nobody allowed foreigners to come into their country because they were like mistrust. It was just starting to change when Prabhupada got his visa to America. And this fellow in Japan had this bright idea of establishing a conference. What did he call it? The Congress for the Cultivation of Human Spirit, which can mean anything. And he was inviting people to come to Tokyo. Conference for the Cultivation of the Human Spirit. So Prabhupada wrote to the gentleman and saying, you send me an invitation and I'll come as a speaker in your conference. So Prabhupada wrote a book. He got a letter, so he wrote a book. The Light of the Bhagavad never got published during Prabhupada's time. But it was responsive to, it was Japan. That's not English speaking, but the flyer was in English. So people in Japan, educated people in Japan could also, so it's outside of India. And America at that time was very prominent, even from the perspective of India. So rather than going to England, he chose to go to America. And this Scindia steamship was the passage to America because of trade between India and America. So that's why America.
Thank you, Prabhu.
English speaking for sure. Anything else? Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Each of us have certain qualities or a mix of qualities aligned to the different varnas, right? Either more scholarly or good at administration and so on. Srila Prabhupada had pretty much all of them, and he could do anything and everything. But if you look at our natural inclinations or sometimes preferences, when empowerment comes through instruction, does it also allow us to do things which you are otherwise not inclined to do. So someone who is Brahminical qualities can suddenly become
Yeah.
very good at administration.
Yeah. A classic example is the artists. When Prabhupada was planning this light of the Bhagavat, he wrote a letter in this correspondence to the organizer of this Congress of Human Spirit. He requested the man using Oriental style art. Prabhupada, in writing, gave a depiction of 47 illustrations that he wanted. So Prabhupada had a visual side to him. It didn't happen. Later, Tamal Krishna Maharaj found the manuscript was found, it was given to him, and he arranged for a lady to make the paintings, matching Prabhupada's description of what the painting should be like. But he had a visual side. So when he started the ISKCON press, before there was the BBT, he also wanted arts work. So he engaged devotees, two pieces of art. One was for an altar. It was what we called at the time, what was called by Prabhupada at the time, Guru Gauranga altar. There was a photo of Prabhupada, and then a painting he wanted on altars, like an actual oil painting of Panchatattva. Guru Gauranga altar. So he had a set of artists making Panchatattva paintings. And then there were some other artists that were to paint for his books. And he gave a vivid description, detailed description of what the artwork should look like. And then the artists would hear the recording of his description, and then they would create the artwork. They would also sit and listen to the say Krishna book and the description in Krishna book, and then they would conceptualize what different paintings would be. So in the course of that artwork, this is not BBT, ISKCON Press artwork. Some of the devotees said, Prabhupada, I never had a paintbrush in my hand before. Should I take art lessons? And Prabhupada's reply, not necessary. Lord Brahma has designed this body in such a way that you practice something, you could become expert at that something. And so the initial paintings were very rudimentary. So those that had actually zero experience, they were the Panchatattva painting people. And some that had a little experience, there was three: Murlidhar, Bharadraj, and Jadharani. They had like an assembly line procedure of establishing paintings for the Prabhupada's books. But later on, some of them did get some formal training. So there's a Renaissance kind of looking background in the backdrop of paintings that look more formal. But initially it was just practice. In devotion to Krishna, Brahma will give you the ability, or Krishna will give you the ability to do whatever is needed. No harm, some training, but that's not the essence is not the training. The essence is the competence is in bhakti. That's the message. So yes, even if one doesn't have some skill, like cooking, or deity dressing, or thising, thating, with devotion. The Jagannath deities, the Shyamsundar carved Jagannath deities. He never had carved anything. Railroad ties became Jagannath. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Even for devotional service in our everyday experience, there is a finite amount of hours based on people's background. That amount varies.
Time
And
management.
there's many things that even devotionally kind of compete for priorities and attention.
Yes.
So how do we keep Srila Prabhupada at the center, which sometimes would mean...
Well, it's bhakti. At the center is bhakti. And then time management is according to your, your skill set and your priorities. It takes intelligence to prioritize properly. And if one doesn't have intelligence, then one isn't going to prioritize properly. And then you'll find yourself running around because I don't have time and too much to do, and you start tearing your hair out. So by intelligence, by discipline, a short principle is 16 rounds every day. And to chant 16 rounds every day and do everything else that I have to do, I have to be very focused. I learned that in college when I started chanting 16 rounds. But it's a long story. It won't go there. The discipline that it takes when you have a busy life to chant 16 rounds teaches you the principle of time management. You have to be very focused, and every day very focused. And you become very focused, and then you stay focused doing what you're doing as you're doing it. And then you don't waste time because you're focused. And if you're not focused, you're going to waste time. And there are lots of things that are undone, and they're important, and you're in a frenzy. Time management starts with chanting 16 rounds. Carefully, attentively. And then, Krishna will give intelligence how to manage your time properly. Time management. Okay, looks like we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Swami Maharaj ki jai.